Hello everyone, this is Danielle, and this works. I'm going to be talking to you about the missing species and the species that are here now. So let's get going. There's a lot to talk about, and I might make a few videos about this. But I think the original creature was not a real bug, but a fish. The fish was the original creature. And then the next creature he made was a bird. So he mixed and matched them. But then the spike from the bird was let's say the walking bird. So first it was a bird, then it was a walking bird. So that's second. I mean, birds were originally pretty bulky, and so they create the walking bird, which is known as what we call raptors and all that, but no, they're not really. They're just walking birds. And the fish became reptiles. That's the third type. Mammals were not there yet. They were just scurrying around as reptiles first. Fish became reptiles, so that's interesting. Because, fish were originally like, let's say that they became fish, but then they became reptiles like turtles. Turtles were actually the first reptiles ever to be created, because they originally had long necks. Then they actually originally had long necks, and they actually were these subspecies of fish, and meat-eating, whatever you can call that, dinosaur, whatever it is. Then they became a turtle because the skin became hard and it became like a shell. And the birds became thinned out, and then they became the mammal that they really were. I mean, sheep were actually not first. I believe the first animal was not a pig, but cattle. I believe I would say that the cattle was the first one, because they had long hair, and before the cattle was a subspecies of everything that you can imagine. I mean, these creatures had fish skin and feathers. Then these species became what you know as brontosaurus. It's like that. Then they became what we call behemoth. And turtles are also leviathan. Not exactly, but Then the turtles became crocodiles because they were like a leviathan. And then the crocodiles became dragons. And this was just blueprint. These were just not evolution, but blueprint. Like a blueprint change, because some of these creatures, what he wanted to do was actually create certain type of creatures to avoid. So he created a blueprint, and then they formed like Adam and Eve. So it was Leviathan after Leviathan. Like, first it was turtle. First it was fish, but then first it was turtle, the first species. Then it was a crocodile, the second one. Then the dragon came, and they had really, the dragon actually, turtle had really glassy skin, and you couldn't even penetrate it easily, not even with a spear. Turtles could be huge back then. They could be ferocious, and you could do nothing about it but just run. And the crocodile came, they had lesser skin. They still had this thick skin, but not as much. They had double layer. But turtles had like a real double layer. Then there was the dragon, which was another leviathan, and then this leviathan thing ended. The next species is what I know to be a mysterious creature on Earth. No one has found them yet. I think they were blueprinted on Earth, and and probably moved elsewhere because I believe they're the type of creature that was namely the spread of the dragon to a dog, and they're just in between. And they're massively smart. Live as long as dragons, but not as long as you think. I've experienced it myself, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I mean, if it's 17 years, I would say... Alright, so within the 17 years... I mean... I think it was 2001 to 2017. In 2001, the subspecies of mine had their own child at 2001. Then in 2017 they had another child. So they've got to at least live at the age of 60 for us at 76. So, I mean, the type of dog that lives long, but the dragon that lives 42. So I think it's like they're the longest on that planet, but they're not as long as we think. I think the ones that were with me were elders. So they've had their first child when they were, I think, young, and the ones that knew me, I mean, when they were young, when they were fathers, they became elders. So yeah, so at least 60. 60 years old. So then they became the mysterious subspecies that, they have a skin, but it's like, have you seen the Chinese crested dog? Not quite as ugly. They're actually quite beautiful, but that's where they came from, but not as noticeable. I think they kind of have the ears of those creatures. Not quite. So they came first, and then the dogs after them came after that. Then the ancient dogs were still like a couple thousand years old from BC time. So I think the oldest dogs are really very furry. But then the crested dog was much older than you thought it was. So dogs came, I think, around the time that humans came. But also, but also these creatures came, 1,000 years before humans came. But they're not high tech. They prefer regular tech, as in the limit they can take is 1940s, or anything with a screen, as in box screen. And they prefer very old-fashioned. Another subspecies of behemoth. So first it was behemoth. First it was those dinosaurs, whatever you call them. That became hippo, like rhinoceros and hippo. Then after that came pig. After that came tapir, then pig. So they have 4. So where do we come in? Well, we were very much a mix, but not really. We have 4 sets of genes. One from the cat, for the scent, I guess. One from the mind of, and barely the makeup of monkeys, and another one, I don't know. There are cats and monkeys, and another one from, where else? Because we stand. I think from ants. We originally came from ants. But that's just a blueprint. Don't take it seriously. So we came from the ants, and then from the lizards, and from the fish. So we came from 5. So cats, mind of the monkeys, and from the ants with strength from ants, and somehow, I mean, protection of the lizards, I think, and skin of fish, absolute skin of fish. I mean, that's just our blueprint. But the smartness is of the ants and strength is of the ants, and we barely have the makeup of monkeys. I don't really know where that came from. We don't really have that makeup of monkeys, but I mean, I think we should take that out of the picture. So we have the smarts and strength of ants, skin of fish, and also the DNA of the cat, and so ants, fish, and also sort of the lizard, I think. But we're not reptile, so we had this fish, and basically mammal of cat. Funny enough, or more like lion. So originally we were lions, and we had the ants because we're strong enough, and we can move like ants, and skin of fish, and also the wherever the reptile is, we don't really know where it is, because they can also create things like, and I believe we can swim like the reptiles too. No, not to make that one up. So humans are very mysterious, but our brains came from God. Seriously, we did. We were created in His image, and He just hid these creatures in front of us. The line was obvious, but I think the one that was very mysterious to us is the ant, and that's our strength. And we have the weakness of the fish, I guess. And He just hid something else. So that's 3 main creatures, but then there's also, where did the cats come from? Originally they came from mice. First it was mice, then it was bigger creatures, like rabbits, and then they became like cats. They just made them carnivores. They just made the teeth different, and and He just made the actual makeup different, because it was originally everything but herbivore. I think the original cat was a herbivore, but then they became carnivore. We were originally herbivores. So that makes us interesting. Also, what were monkeys originally? They were basically of the jungle. But let's go backwards. Humans were first. But there was also the monkey. I think they originally, I don't know, where they came from, I just don't really understand. I mean, people say they came from cats, but I think they came from mice. Honestly, I think they came from mice. And then became lemurs, or just like they became mice, and then ferrets, and where we call them, like ferrets. And they became cats, and then later on they became monkeys as ferrets, and then lemurs and all that. So that's cats and monkeys, and monkeys are the new ones. I mean, he started making them in all at the same time, but then he made the bulky monkeys. So they keep getting bigger and bigger. But as they will get bigger, they'll get smaller. Just as the behemoth, they started out as fish, but they became big, but then they became smaller. Same with each creature. I mean, first was a turtle. They started out small, but then they became big. Then they became an alligator, a crocodile. Then they became dragon, and then they became smaller again, like the mysterious creature. Then they became dogs, because everything has a starting point. Everything has to get bigger, then get more smaller and complex. But let me just say something. The mysterious creature had everything from the dragon, including wisdom. So they had much understanding to create structures and all that stuff. These creatures actually have massive skill and structure built. Like they have massive skill, and they also have massive like might of the mind. And I think these hidden creatures, they can become demons, and they're also angels. So basically, they became like dogs and dragons because that's when they're at their darkest. But instead, they can become the lightest, like eagles. So they can be actually at their best with their mind at a purpose to actually become the most beautiful creature that you can ever imagine, like the angel. But for us, we have all the combinations, but we're created in God's image. Because we have nothing of cats, we have nothing of ants, we have nothing of those people, and we have nothing of fish, but we're just created in God's image. We just have the outline. That's pretty much it. And monkeys, they're built bulky in different ways. We don't have anything of monkeys. For all we know, they could become bigger and a much bigger problem, but they're not really going to become. They're not even a nuisance. As a matter of fact, we're just taking them out. We're becoming a greater than a nuisance to them. And to dogs, we're actually their best friend, and they're our best friend. But they become sinners. Like a dragon, we took them out. But with dogs, we kept them. So we have a variety of things. Like the turtle is ancient, but we still have them. The crocodile is ancient, but for us, we know that they have a scent in between, very much close to turtles. Their scent is very close to turtles, and dragons are in between turtles and dogs. And these creatures, well, they're between crocodiles and dogs. I don't know, but in a sense, we really don't have all the outlines. All the creatures of the earth, they are the most creatures of all the worlds. But yet, we're missing a whole bunch of creatures. Not only extinct, but almost non-existent elsewhere. But we don't have much life elsewhere. I mean, one of the planets we seem to have other creatures, but we don't know really what they are. But another, they have taken some crocodiles and they've taken some other creatures of the earth. But we also have the creatures of the other planets. Like for instance, a turtle might actually be on, let's say, one of the planets we already know. And they think, well, the turtle's an alien, but they're not really. So, really, all the creatures that look alien are actually just starting out new. They're actually being built on God's blueprint. You saw the weirdest fish ever that looked really ugly. And that fish was, let's say, a glob, but they actually became a new frog. And instead of a frog, they're actually going to become some sort of creature we don't even understand. So they become fish, amphibious, and then instead they actually replace some creature that we've killed off. So I think they're going to be some sort of other frog that we've killed off to replace them. So since we killed the frog in 2000, the other frog is going to replace it. Do you understand? But then there's another creature that looks kind of like a snake and whatever it is. I don't think that's going to be a snake. I think instead it's going to be a mammal. What mammal did we recently kill off back in 2002? Do you understand? So every blueprint comes with a consequence. But every blueprint can be killed off or it can stay on Earth. Because it's just because, God has a blueprint for everything. I mean, man has killed a lot of creatures off, like the mammoth and all that. But he knows what he's doing. And I think instead of the mammoth, he's killed. I think he's created. Some sort of plant eater there. Anything. I think some creatures move into that area, so that's good. But I think it's like an Indian elephant that's replaced it. Then instead of a saber-toothed cat, we have the California, like a mountain lion. So instead of a saber-toothed cat, we have a mountain lion. So that's replacements. God has replacements for every endangered or extinct animal. But he will never replace a lion. He'll just have it in spirit form, I guess. I don't know. But it's funny because whenever something goes extinct, God creates something, maybe a mess in the beginning, but it's not in the end. It didn't start that way with humans. But I think with the human, we just had his own clay made, like he created things with clay, and he created things with, it was his dust. His dust became clay, and he was forming it. It was a very messy, it looked very messy in the beginning. But in the end, he had this perfect, still statue of a human that was pretty much dead, and he breathed life into a human named Adam, and he became us. No human has ever since then changed. I mean, you know how caterpillar becomes a firefly? Look at this. I mean, it's blurry now, but okay. See, it's caterpillar. Then it becomes a cocoon. Then it becomes a butterfly. So this thing becomes this, and then better picture I believe is this thing. That becomes this, then becomes this. It's just a process. Creation is a process. It first started from a turtle, like a caterpillar. Then it became a crocodile, like a cocoon. Then it became a dragon, which was a butterfly. And then the dragon was like a caterpillar. Then it became an actual mysterious creature with a cocoon. Then the dog, like a butterfly. So understand that there's a process for everything. But only does it start with a blueprint. Everything starts with a blueprint because turtles were originally like fish. And those were literally, like 1,000 years after the actual turtles. Those were like 1,000 years after the fish. And then 1,000 years after the fish were the crocodiles. And after 1,000 years after the crocodiles were the dragons. And then 1,000 years after that were the actual mysterious creature. And 1,000 years after that was the dog. And that stopped there. Because they became man's best friend, because he knew that the dragon would be the one that would be going extinct and the mysterious creature would not be on Earth. So the dog was the last one. Anything smaller than a dog would not make sense because, a dog is a man's best friend. And a cat is a man's second best friend. Like, let's say it this way. Dogs are actually like having your wife or your husband, but not like that, because that would be bad. And a cat is like having your best friend beside you. But if you don't have any friends, a cat will be your best friend. They'll love you forever. But if you do have people, just talk to people more than usual. If always have a person beside you. And, in God's terms, everything will have time before in creation time. First he must prepare the blueprint, then he must start forming them in his own clay way. Then they will either replace or have a new design. It's always been that way. In every term, there's a consequence. In every other term, there's a new creation. And God has his way of creating interesting creatures. And how can I tell that the crocodile... Okay, leviathan is always a turtle or a crocodile or a dragon. We always knew that. But how can I tell that? Well, dragon has a big chest, dogs do too, and one I had basically visions of, they had the same thing. They just have a chest filled with that lung that has never been since replaced. I just still know that. So, ever since that's been in my mind, I guess I want you to know that, God has his own interesting way of creating things. He has replenish and replace sort of effect to him, God has his ways of creating his creatures. Alright, I'll be done now, okay? Bye.